Think about the most valuable things in the world: gold, diamonds, even time itself. What do they all have in common? They are rare. Their scarcity is what makes people desire them, chase after them, and even fight for them. The moment something is unlimited, it starts losing its worth. That's why air is essential but taken for granted, while a rare vintage wine is treasured. Now, let's apply this same principle to relationships. When you are constantly available, always saying yes, always picking up the phone on the first ring, what message are you sending? You're signaling that your time, your energy, your presence, it's easy to get. And when something is easy to get, it's easy to overlook. That's human nature. We don't appreciate what we always have access to. We don't wake up every morning grateful for the sun until we experience a storm. We don't crave electricity until there's a blackout. And we don't value a person's presence until we are forced to feel their absence. Let's be clear, this is not about playing games. This is about understanding the psychology of value. When something is abundant, it loses its power to captivate, to inspire, to make an impact. And if you want to be seen, if you want to be truly appreciated, you must think about a luxury brand. A high-end designer doesn't flood the market with their products. They control their supply. They make their items exclusive. And as a result, people are willing to wait, pay more, and cherish what they receive. If Chanel started handing out free bags on every street corner, would people still line up to buy them? No, because accessibility would destroy the very thing that makes them desirable. Now, let's talk about relationships. When a man knows he can have you at any moment, when he knows you will always be there no matter what he does, something shifts in his mind. Not because he is bad, not because he is ungrateful, but because that's how we're wired as human beings. We desire what feels special, what feels earned, what isn't guaranteed. When you make yourself a constant in his life, always showing up, always giving, always reaching out, you become predictable. And predictability doesn't create passion. Predictability doesn't create appreciation. It creates complacency. On the other hand, when you are a woman who values herself enough to create space, you shift the dynamic. He starts to wonder, where is she? What is she doing? And in that moment, you move from being an expectation to being a desire. Absence does something powerful. It forces reflection. It makes a man stop and think. Do I miss her? Do I feel different without her? And that realization is what ignites true appreciation. If you are always there, he never has the opportunity to feel what life is like without you. Have you ever noticed that people don't fully appreciate their health until they get sick? They don't value their freedom until they feel trapped. They don't recognize a great relationship until they've lost it. It's in the absence that clarity is found. That's why taking a step back is not a sign of weakness. It's a position of power. When you give a man the opportunity to feel your absence, you give him the chance to recognize your worth on his own terms. And that is infinitely more powerful than trying to convince him with words or actions. Now, some people hear this and think, so I should just disappear? No. It's not about manipulation. It's about knowing your value and not overexerting yourself to prove it. It's about understanding that your presence should feel like a privilege, not an obligation. A woman who is always chasing, always over-explaining, always trying to prove her worth is a woman who will never be truly appreciated. But a woman who is confident in her value, a woman who can stand strong in her own energy without needing constant validation, she becomes unforgettable. Look at history. Look at legends. The most desired, most cherished individuals in the world weren't the ones who begged for attention. They were the ones who carried themselves with a quiet confidence, who weren't afraid to be seen or to step away, and that's what made them magnetic. So if you want to be truly valued, if you want a man to see your worth, don't give him everything up front. Make him work for your presence. Make him feel what it's like when you're not around. Because when you do, he won't just see you, he'll appreciate you in a way he never could before. Emotions don't exist in a vacuum. We only know happiness because we've felt sadness. We appreciate warmth because we've experienced cold. The human mind understands value through contrast. Without it, everything blurs together into one dull, unremarkable experience. This is why relationships, love, and connection must also have contrast, because without it, they become monotonous, predictable, and ultimately unappreciated. Think about it. If you eat your favorite food every single day, will it still excite you? At first, maybe. But over time, it becomes ordinary. The flavors that once made your mouth water now feel routine. That's not because the food changed. It's because you lost the contrast. You didn't give yourself a chance to crave it, to miss it, to long for it. The same thing happens in relationships. When your presence is constant, when you're always available, when there's no shift, no variation, there's nothing for him to emotionally react to. And here's where the power of absence comes in. When you step away, even just a little, you create space for emotional contrast. A man cannot understand how much he values you until he experiences life without you. Not just for a few hours, not just during a brief misunderstanding, but in a real, undeniable way where your presence is no longer a given. It's in that space that emotions start to stir. At first, it might not be obvious. He might carry on as if nothing has changed, but then slowly he begins to notice the difference. Maybe it's the silence where there used to be laughter. Maybe it's the absence of your texts that once brightened his mornings. Maybe it's the realization that nobody else makes him feel the way you do. This is the emotional contrast that forces realization. We don't recognize what something truly means to us when we have it every day. But the moment it's missing, it stands out like a void. It's like walking into a room where the music has suddenly stopped. You don't think about the music when it's playing, but the second it's gone, the silence is deafening. This is why space is so powerful. It's not about manipulation. It's not about making someone chase you. It's about allowing the natural contrast of emotions to bring clarity. If a man is used to always having you there, he never gets the opportunity to feel what it's like when you're not. And if he never feels that contrast, he can never fully understand your value. Look at the way people react when they lose something they once took for granted. Suddenly, the small things matter. The little moments they overlooked now feel priceless. The comfort they once assumed would always be there is now something they desperately miss. This is how emotional contrast forces appreciation. Now, let's take it a step further. When you create space, when you allow absence to enter the equation, you give a man two choices. He will either realize that his life is genuinely better with you in it, or he will discover that it isn't. Both answers are a gift. One leads to deeper appreciation, the other gives you clarity. The problem is too many people fear space. They cling, they overcompensate. They try to force appreciation by giving more, by proving their worth through constant availability. But the truth is, appreciation cannot be forced. It must be felt. And feeling requires contrast. Think about great works of art. The beauty of a painting isn't just in the colors, it's in the shadows, the depth, the interplay between light and dark. Without contrast, even the most brilliant artwork would look flat. Relationships are the same. There must be moments of closeness, but also moments of distance. There must be presence, but also absence. When a man starts to feel the contrast of life with and without you, his emotions become clear. He isn't just intellectually aware of your value, he feels it in his bones. And emotions, not logic, drive decisions. It's not the checklist in his mind that will make him commit, chase, or appreciate you. It's the undeniable pull of realizing, through absence, that his life is better with you in it. If there's never contrast, if you're always there, always giving, always accessible, then there's nothing for his emotions to respond to. But the moment you create that space, the moment you allow for emotional contrast, something shifts. The way he sees you changes. The way he values you deepens. And the realization that you're irreplaceable becomes undeniable. Every interaction you have with someone is a lesson. Whether you realize it or not, you are constantly teaching people how to treat you by what you accept, what you tolerate, and what you reinforce. In relationships, this principle is even more powerful. The way you respond to a man's actions, the way you set boundaries, or fail to, determines how he perceives your worth and how he behaves toward you. Human nature is simple. People will do what they can get away with, not because they are inherently bad or malicious, but because we all operate within the limits that are set for us. If a child grows up in a home where there are no rules, no structure, no discipline, they will test every boundary. They will push limits because they've never been taught otherwise. The same thing happens in relationships. If you don't establish what is acceptable, what is valued, and what is non-negotiable, you leave the door open for someone else to define those things for you. The first time you let something slide, the first time you accept less than what you deserve, you send a message. You communicate that this behavior is okay, that it doesn't have consequences. And once that standard is set, it becomes incredibly difficult to change. Because why would anyone put in more effort if they've already learned that less is enough? Think about this. When you first start dating someone, the way you carry yourself, the way you react to their level of effort, sets the foundation for how they will treat you moving forward. If you tolerate inconsistency from the beginning, you are teaching them that consistency is not required. If you overgive, you teach them that your love is something they don't have to earn. If you always initiate, always chase, always accommodate, you are setting the expectation that your time, attention, and presence are things they don't have to work for. But the moment you set a boundary, the moment you say, this is what I require, you shift the entire dynamic. You teach them that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee, that you will not be an option. They must choose you fully or not at all. And here's the truth. People respect what they have to earn. Look at the most successful businesses, the most admired leaders, the most desired individuals. They all have one thing in common. They don't overextend themselves for people who don't show up with the same energy. They set the bar and others rise to meet it. They don't beg for recognition, they command it. Now, let's talk about the flip side. Many people fear setting boundaries because they think it will push the other person away. They think, if I don't always say yes, if I don't prove my love, they'll leave. But let's get real. If someone only stays because you are bending over backward for them, they are not there for the right reasons. True connection is built on mutual respect, not on one person overextending themselves while the other coasts. Think about a high-value experience, let's say a 5-star hotel. When you walk in, they don't beg for your business. They don't lower their standards because someone wants a discount. No, they maintain their level of excellence, and as a result, people respect their value. The same is true in relationships. The moment you start negotiating your worth, you send a message that your standards are flexible, and once that message is received, you've lost control of how you're treated. You must be willing to let someone feel the consequences of not valuing you. That doesn't mean playing games or manipulating people. It means having the strength to walk away from what doesn't serve you. Because the reality is, when you hold your standards firm, one of two things will happen. The right person will step up, adjust, and meet you where you deserve to be met. The wrong person will walk away, and that's a blessing, not a loss. This is where so many people struggle. They fear losing someone so much that they lower their expectations just to keep them around. But keeping someone around at the cost of your self-respect is not a win. It's a slow erosion of your confidence, your happiness, and your self-worth. You must understand that love is not about proving yourself. It's about aligning with someone who sees your worth and treats you accordingly. And the only way to make sure that happens is to teach people how to treat you from the start. Not with words, not with ultimatums, but with your actions, your standards, and your willingness to walk away from anything that falls short. People don't reflect when they're comfortable. They reflect when something shifts, when something is missing, when they're forced to sit with their thoughts and question what truly matters. This is why absence is one of the most powerful forces in relationships. It creates the space for realization. When you're constantly present in someone's life, they don't have the opportunity to truly think about you. They don't have a reason to pause, to miss you, to question what life feels like without you. Your presence becomes routine, something they assume will always be there. And routine, while comforting, doesn't inspire appreciation. It creates expectation. Now contrast that with what happens when you step away. When you pull back, something shifts. The silence is louder. The space is noticeable. And in that space, reflection begins. At first it might be subtle. He might carry on as usual, going about his day without much thought. But then something happens. Maybe he reaches for his phone out of habit and realizes there's no message from you. Maybe he hears a song that reminds him of you. Maybe he walks into a place where you once laughed together and suddenly the absence feels real. This is the moment when reflection begins. When something is no longer readily available, the mind starts to search for it. He starts to wonder, why do I feel this way? Why does something feel off? And in that wondering, he starts to connect the dots. He starts to realize what you brought to his life. Reflection isn't something you can force on someone. You can't tell a man, hey, appreciate me more. Think about me when I'm not there. That's not how the human mind works. True realization only happens when it's experienced firsthand. It's why people don't realize how much they love their childhood home until they move out. It's why they don't recognize the impact of a loved one until they're no longer around. It's why they don't fully understand the value of someone's presence until that presence is missing. Absence forces a person to evaluate what was once taken for granted. It makes them revisit past moments with a new perspective. What was once ordinary suddenly feels special. What was once expected now feels like a privilege. But here's the key. This only works when the absence is real. If you step away but keep checking in, if you create space but secretly hope for immediate validation, the effect is lost. True reflection happens when the mind is given time to process the change. It doesn't happen instantly. It takes days, sometimes weeks, for a person to go from, oh, she's just busy, to, wait, I actually miss her. Think about how nostalgia works. You don't miss something the moment it's gone. You miss it when you start to feel its absence in the little things. When you go through an experience and suddenly realize something's missing. When you have a moment of joy, but wish that person was there to share it with you. This is why stepping away is so powerful. It's not about playing a game. It's about allowing the natural process of realization to unfold. It's about giving someone the space to reach their own conclusion rather than trying to force them to see what's been right in front of them all along. And here's the reality. Not everyone will reflect the same way. Some people will feel your absence and come to a deep realization of your worth. Others won't. And that's valuable information in itself. Because the man who truly values you, the man who genuinely cares, will feel that absence in a way that sparks action. He won't just miss you. He'll start to ask himself, what do I need to do to bring her back into my life? But that's his journey, that's his process. Your job is not to control his reflection. It's to create the space that makes reflection possible. In life, not everyone who enters your space is there for the right reasons. Some people appreciate you for who you truly are, while others enjoy what you provide, the comfort, the validation, the emotional support. And the only way to tell the difference between the two is through absence. When you're always there, always giving, always available, it's easy for people to stick around out of habit rather than true appreciation. But when you step back, when you remove yourself from the equation, something powerful happens. You get to see who actually values you and who was just benefiting from your presence. Think about a flame. When you hold your hand close to the fire, you feel its warmth. It's comforting. But if that fire suddenly disappears, what happens? Do you go looking for another source of warmth, or do you try to rekindle the flame? That's the question absence answers in relationships. Some men will feel your absence and realize they were only enjoying the benefits of your presence, not valuing you as a person. They were comfortable, entertained, and emotionally fulfilled because you provided those things. But the moment you step away, instead of missing you, they simply seek another source of the same comfort. They move on without hesitation, not because you weren't worth it, but because they were never truly invested in the first place. And then there are the ones who feel your absence on a deeper level. The ones who don't just miss the things you did for them, they miss you. They miss your energy, your presence, your voice, the way you made them feel in a way no one else could. They realize that what they had with you wasn't just convenience, it was connection. This is why absence is the ultimate test of a relationship. It reveals everything. It shows you who is willing to make an effort, who is willing to step up, who truly values you versus who is just there because it was easy. It separates those who care from those who are just comfortable. Think about the friendships you've had in life. Some friends only show up when it's convenient, when they need something, when they're bored, when they have no other options. But the real friends, they're the ones who check in even when they're busy. The ones who reach out not because they need something, but because they genuinely care. The same principle applies in romantic relationships. When you create space, you give a man the opportunity to reveal his true intentions. If he truly values you, he won't let that space grow into permanent distance. He will feel the absence, and instead of filling it with distractions, he will feel compelled to close the gap. But if he was only there because it was convenient, if he was only enjoying what you gave without valuing who you are, he won't chase. He won't fight for you. And as painful as that realization may be, it's a gift. Because it frees you from wasting time on someone who was never truly yours to begin with. Too many people stay in situations where they are merely tolerated rather than cherished. They keep giving, keep overextending, keep proving their worth to someone who never really saw it in the first place. But when you step back, you remove the guesswork. You take the pressure off yourself to convince someone to value you, and instead you let their actions reveal the truth. A man who truly wants you in his life will not let your absence go unnoticed. He won't just sit back and hope you return on your own. He will do something. He will reach out. He will make an effort. He will show through his actions, not just his words, that you are not just a convenience to him, but a necessity. And if he doesn't, if he lets the space grow, if he replaces you without a second thought, then you've just been given clarity. You've been freed from an illusion. You've been given the opportunity to step forward and find the connection that truly values you for who you are, not just what you provide. Absence doesn't just create longing, it reveals truth. It shows you who is willing to fight for you and who is just along for the ride. And once you see that truth, you can never unsee it. Attraction isn't just about physical chemistry or shared interests. It's about emotional and psychological pull. It's about the feeling of wanting someone, of being drawn to them in a way that feels magnetic. But here's the secret most people overlook. Desire isn't created through constant availability. It's created through space, mystery, and longing. The human mind craves what it cannot immediately have. When something is always within reach, when there's no challenge, no space, no anticipation, it starts to lose its intrigue. This is why luxury brands limit availability, why exclusive experiences feel more valuable, and why the thrill of the chase exists in human relationships. The perception of rarity increases desire. In relationships, this means that when you're always present, always available, always the one initiating, there's no time for emotional buildup. There's no chance for the mind to linger on you, to wonder what you're doing, to miss you. And without that gap, attraction starts to plateau. Not because you're not amazing, but because the human brain needs contrast to feel excitement. Think about how anticipation builds excitement in every other area of life. When you're waiting for a vacation, the countdown makes it more thrilling. When you're expecting a package in the mail, checking for updates increases your excitement. The waiting amplifies the desire. The same thing happens in romantic attraction. A man needs the opportunity to long for you. He needs moments where he wonders about you, where he questions what you're thinking, where he feels the discomfort of your absence enough to crave your presence. Now, this isn't about playing games or deliberately creating distance to manipulate emotions. It's about understanding the natural rhythm of attraction, the push and pull that keeps desire alive. When you give a man space, you allow his feelings to deepen on their own. You let his mind work in your favor, creating scenarios where he starts to think about you even when you're not around. And here's the truth. When someone truly desires you, they don't just want your presence. They want to earn it. This is why the most passionate relationships often start with a bit of unpredictability. It's not about making someone suffer. It's about giving them the chance to feel the weight of wanting you, to take action, to pursue, to invest. Because investment creates attachment. What we work for, we value more. Look at how people treat the things they put effort into. When someone saves up for something, they cherish it more than if it was handed to them. When they work hard to build a career, they feel more pride than if it was simply given. The same applies to relationships. When a man has to step up, when he has to feel the discomfort of missing you, when he has to do something to get closer to you, he values you at a deeper level. This is why absence isn't a weakness. It's a tool for strengthening attraction. It reminds a man that you are not just a constant presence in his life, but a woman of depth, independence, and value. It signals that your time and energy are precious and that being close to you is a privilege, not an entitlement. The mistake many people make is assuming that love and connection should mean constant availability. They fear that if they step away, even for a moment, the connection will weaken. But the reality is, it's in the space between moments that desire grows. It's in the pauses, the silences, the longing glances, the incomplete interactions that create the hunger for more. Have you ever noticed how a great story builds suspense? How a song with perfectly timed pauses makes the next beat hit even harder? This is what absence does in attraction. It creates the space that makes the next connection even more powerful. But here's the key. The right man won't just feel the pull of attraction. He will act on it. He won't just think about you. He will reach out. He will pursue. He will show through his effort that he doesn't want to let the space between you grow too wide. And this is where you see the truth of someone's intentions, not in their words, not in empty promises, but in what they do when they feel the weight of missing you. So, if you ever fear that stepping back will make you less desirable, remind yourself of this. Absence doesn't diminish attraction, it intensifies it. It gives a man the chance to realize just how much he wants you, to feel the gap when you're not there, and to take action to close that gap. And the ones who don't, the ones who let the space stay empty, they were never truly yours to begin with.